He's navigating a quiet, residential area when he spots a peculiar man dancing in the middle of the street. This man is unlike anyone he's ever seen. His clothes are old and strange, and he's grinning in a very odd, unnatural way. His smile is so wide and contorted that it's deeply disturbing. The narrator feels an immediate sense of unease and tries to walk around him. But as he attempts to ignore the man, the smiling figure turns towards him and begins to walk in his direction, still grinning, but moving in an extremely unnatural manner. His gait is bizarre, almost as if he's walking only on the balls of his feet, with his legs bent at strange angles. As the smiling man draws closer, his grin widens even further, and his eyes appear vacant and manic. The narrator starts to run, but the man, still smiling in that horrifying way, picks up speed and walks faster, effortlessly keeping pace with him. The man gets disturbingly close, and when the narrator looks back, he finds him right behind him with that vast, unending smile. Eventually, the narrator manages to get into his apartment building, and when he glances back, the smiling man is once again standing in the middle of the street, dancing as if nothing had happened. Why this story is so terrifying? Relatability. It taps into the very common experience of walking alone at night. Anyone can put themselves in the narrator's shoes, making the threat feel personal. Unnaturalness. The man's bizarre behavior, his strange dance, his contorted smile, his unnatural walk, all defy normal human conduct, creating a profound sense of unease and wrongness. Lack of motivation. We are never told who the man is, what he wants, or why he's doing this. This unknown is arguably the most terrifying element. His actions are devoid of a clear motive, making him unpredictable and purely menacing. Silent threat. The man never speaks, he only smiles and pursues. His silence amplifies his horror, as there's no way to reason with or understand him. Sense of helplessness. The narrator tries to flee, but the man effortlessly keeps pace, instilling a feeling of inescapable dread in both the character and the reader. Lingering image. His horrifying, never-ending smile is a visual that imprints itself on your mind long after the story is over. This story focuses on the fear of the unnatural human, rather than a monstrous creature, which often makes it far more unsettling. It makes you realize the potential for lurking, inexplicable danger even in the mundane parts of your daily routine. Back in 1998, a young couple, Mark and Elise, moved into a quiet suburban home at the end of Willow Lane. The house had been on the market for years, its windows boarded, its lawn overgrown. But the price was too good to pass up. The first night was uneventful, but on the second night, Elise woke to the sound of footsteps pacing in the hallway. Mark grabbed a bat and opened the door, only to find the hall completely empty. The footsteps didn't stop. Every night after midnight, they would echo through the corridor, slow, deliberate, almost dragging. One evening, Elise tried something desperate. She left a recorder in the hallway. When they played it back, the sound was unmistakable. A voice whispering over the footsteps, repeating one chilling phrase, "Get out." Within a week, they packed their things and left. To this day, the house remains abandoned. The grass swallowing the yard, the windows blind and dark, as if waiting for its next guests. Story 2. The Portrait in the Attic Narrator. In 2012, a college student named Rachel rented an old Victorian home near her campus. The landlord mentioned the attic was locked and asked her not to bother with it. But curiosity has a way of scratching at the mind. One stormy night, Rachel found the key taped beneath a loose floorboard. She opened the attic door. Inside, the room smelled of rot and mildew. Dust clung to every surface, and in the corner stood a tall, cracked mirror. But what froze Rachel in her tracks was the massive portrait leaning against the wall. A painting of a family she didn't recognize. A father, a mother, and 2 children, all staring directly at her. Only, their eyes seemed too real, too alive. Rachel tried to look away, but something compelled her gaze back to the painting. In that instant, the mother's painted lips curled into a grin. The children's heads turned ever so slightly. Rachel screamed and slammed the attic door shut. The next morning, she told her landlord she was moving out. His response chilled her more than the portrait ever could. He said quietly, "That room has been locked since 1924, after the family who lived there was found inside, dead, next to a half-finished painting." Story 3. The rental that wouldn't let go narrator. A man named Christopher traveled frequently for work. In 2017, he rented a house through an online listing. It was modern, spotless, and cheap for the area. Almost too cheap. The first night was fine. But on the second, while brushing his teeth, he glanced into the bathroom mirror. For just a second, someone stood behind him. A tall, shadowy figure, motionless, watching. He spun around. No one. But from that moment forward, he couldn't escape the feeling of being watched. Doors would open on their own. Lights flickered. At night, he'd hear breathing just inches from his ear, though the room was empty. Christopher decided to leave early. But when he went to unlock the front door, it wouldn't budge. Not the lock. Not the handle. Not even the windows. It was as if the house had sealed itself shut. For 2 days, Christopher was trapped. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't escape. Finally, on the 3rd morning, he woke up outside. Lying in the front yard, his suitcase beside him. He checked his phone and saw dozens of photos taken while he slept. In each one, a shadow loomed closer and closer, until the final image showed nothing but darkness. Christopher deleted the photos, but he never rented a house again. To this day, he says he can still feel that presence, watching him, waiting for the chance to finish what it started.
Imagine waking up. You can see your room. You can hear the silence, the subtle hum of the night. But you can't move. You can't speak. You're completely paralyzed. And then, you realize you're not alone. Something is in the room with you. Something you can only see in your mind's eye, but it feels terrifyingly real. Tonight, we delve into the dark realm of sleep paralysis. These aren't just dreams. These are 3 chilling, allegedly true accounts of people who awoke to find themselves utterly helpless, facing down terrifying entities, what many describe as sleep paralysis demons. If you've ever felt that cold dread, if you've ever battled the unseen in the dead of night, then hit that hype button below, please. If it's completely free, if it helps us share these disturbing truths, we'll journey into bedrooms turned battlegrounds, where the line between reality and nightmare blurs. These stories will make you question what truly happens when your body sleeps, but your mind is wide awake. So turn off the lights, get comfortable, but maybe don't get too comfortable. Our first story comes from a viewer named Sarah, who lives in a quiet suburban home. Sarah had experienced sleep paralysis a few times before, always feeling a vague sense of unease, but nothing truly terrifying. That changed one night. She woke up suddenly in the early hours, sometime around 3 a.m. Her room was dark, but she could clearly make out the shapes of her furniture. The usual. Except for one thing, she couldn't move a muscle. Her body felt like lead, heavy and utterly unresponsive. She tried to cry out, but no sound escaped her throat. A familiar panic began to set in. This time, however, was different. As she lay there, helpless, she felt a distinct, immense pressure settle onto her chest. It wasn't imaginary. It felt like something heavy, something physical, was pressing her down into the mattress, making it hard to breathe. Her eyes darted to the foot of her bed. In the deepest shadow, at the very edge of her peripheral vision, she saw it. A figure. It was tall, impossibly thin, and draped in what looked like tattered, dark rags. Its head was down, angled towards her, but she couldn't make out any features, just a void, a deeper darkness within the shadow. The pressure on her chest intensified, making her gasp silently for air. She felt a wave of pure, primal terror wash over her. She knew, with every fiber of her being, that this thing was not just a hallucination. It was real, and it was there on her bed, sitting on her. She tried to fight, to scream, to even twitch a finger, but her body betrayed her. The figure slowly, almost imperceptibly, began to raise its head. Sarah clamped her eyes shut, wishing, praying for it to stop. The pressure remained. The silence of the room was deafening, broken only by her own frantic, silent heartbeat. And then just as suddenly as it began, it was over. The pressure lifted. She gasped for air, her body shaking uncontrollably. She could move again. She scrambled up, heart pounding, and turned on every light in her room. Nothing. The room was empty, but the indentation on her mattress, where the thing had been sitting, was still visible. Sarah says she never sleeps on her back anymore. And every night, before she closes her eyes, she checks the foot of her bed, just in case the weight decides to return. Have you ever felt a physical presence during sleep paralysis? Share your unsettling experiences in the comments below. Our second chilling account comes from David, a college student living in an old apartment in the city. David was a deep sleeper, rarely bothered by anything. But one night, he woke up to a sound, a faint, unintelligible whisper. It was coming from his closet. He tried to sit up, but found himself completely frozen. His eyes were wide open, staring directly at the half-open closet door. The whispering grew louder, more insistent. But still no coherent words. It sounded like many voices, overlapping, sinister, and filled with malice. As he stared, a shadow began to detach itself from the deepest part of the closet. It wasn't just darkness, it was a shapeless, swirling mass, darker than anything in the room. It slowly, deliberately began to drift towards his bed. The whispering intensified, now sounding like it was right next to his ear. He felt an icy coldness spread over his body, despite his room being warm. The shadow reached the side of his bed. David could feel its presence, a dense, cold energy that made his skin crawl. Then, from the swirling darkness of the shadow, a single, clear voice emerged. It was deep, guttural, and filled with pure hatred. It didn't speak words, but rather a chilling thought that implanted itself directly into his mind. You are ours now. David felt an invisible force pressing down on him, not physically, but emotionally, a suffocating dread. He wanted to scream, to fight, but he was trapped, a silent observer in his own terrifying drama. The voice repeated the thought, "You are ours now," over and over, its insidious presence filling his mind. He closed his eyes, desperately trying to break free. He focused all his energy on just a single twitch, a single breath. And then, with a jolt, he broke through. He sat bolt upright, drenched in sweat, gasping. The room was silent. The closet door was still half open. But the shadow was gone. David spent the rest of the night huddled in his chair, lights on, listening to the silence. He still sometimes hears whispers from his closet at night. And every time, he wonders if he truly broke free, or if that chilling voice was right, or a part of him is theirs now. Has a dream or a moment of paralysis ever made you question your sanity? Tell us about it below. Our final, and perhaps most unsettling, story comes from Maria, a young artist who lives alone in a small apartment. Maria often works late into the night, and she's prone to overthinking. But one night, her overthinking turned into sheer terror. She woke up abruptly, her body completely rigid. She knew the drill, sleep paralysis. Her eyes scanned her room. Nothing seemed out of place. Her familiar paintings on the wall, her art supplies, her window looking out onto the quiet street. Then, her eyes drifted to the corner of her room, opposite her bed, and she saw it. A figure. It was tall, thin, and perfectly still. It was just a shadow, a deeper black against the already dim room. But its outline was distinctly human. It was standing there, completely motionless, just watching her. Maria felt her heart leap into her throat. This wasn't a quick flash, or a pressure. This was a sustained, unwavering presence. The figure had no discernible features, no face she could make out, but she felt its gaze. It was intensely focused on her, radiating a cold, malevolent curiosity. She tried to close her eyes, but couldn't. She was forced to stare back at this silent, watchful entity in her room. The silence was absolute, unbroken. She wanted to scream, to cry, to even just blink. But she was trapped in a terrifying staring contest with pure darkness. She focused on a tiny detail, a faint, almost imperceptible shimmer around its edges like heat haze, or something trying to solidify. She realized it wasn't just a shadow. It was a void in the shape of a man, absorbing all light, all sound, all hope. Minutes stretched into an eternity. The figure never moved, never blinked, just watched. Maria felt like her soul was being meticulously examined, judged by this silent observer. She knew if she broke eye contact, if she looked away, something terrible would happen. Finally, with a sudden jolt, her body released. She sprang up, gasping, her entire body shaking. She scrambled for her phone, turning on its flashlight, and shined it directly at the corner. Nothing. Just her empty room. Maria installed a night light in that corner. She can't explain what she saw, or why it just stood there watching. But she knows one thing sometimes. When you're caught in the grip of sleep paralysis, you're not just fighting a neurological glitch. You're fighting for your soul against a silent, patient watcher from the shadows. Three stories. 3 terrifying encounters with the sleep paralysis demon. Whether these are purely psychological phenomena, a trick of the mind, or glimpses into something far more sinister, they leave an undeniable mark on those who experience them. These accounts force us to confront our deepest fears, the fear of helplessness, the fear of the unknown, and the terrifying thought that even in the supposed safety of our own beds, we might not truly be alone. Which of these stories made you pull your covers a little tighter? Share your thoughts. And if you have your own chilling sleep paralysis experience, tell us in the comments below. And if these true tales of terror have left you with a lingering chill, please make sure you've hit that hype button and subscribe to the channel. Because the line between dream and reality is often thinner than we dare to imagine. Good night.